Catherine's fingers trembled as she stood before the ornate mirror in Clarence's house, watching as the royal dresser approached with the Cartier halo tiara. The delicate piece, crafted in 1936, seemed to shimmer with its own inner light as it caught the afternoon sun streaming through the tall windows. Today was her wedding day, and in just a few hours, she would walk down the aisle of Westminster Abbey to marry Prince William. The tiara had been a gift from King George VI to his wife, the future Queen Mother, on her 18th birthday. Made of platinum and set with 739 brilliant-cut diamonds and 149 baguette diamonds, it was a masterpiece of 20th-century jewelry design. The scrolling design featured roses, thistles, shamrocks, and wheat ears, representing the four nations of the United Kingdom. Catherine had learned all of this during her private sessions with the royal jeweler, but knowing the history somehow made the weight of wearing it feel even more significant. Lady Elizabeth Anson, the Queen's cousin and one of Catherine's advisors, stood nearby, her eyes glistening with emotion. She had been present at countless royal ceremonies, but there was something particularly moving about watching a commoner prepare to enter the most famous family in the world. Catherine's transformation from a middle-class girl from Berkshire to the future Princess of Wales had been remarkable, and the tiara would serve as the ultimate symbol of that journey. The dresser's hands were steady and experienced as she positioned the tiara perfectly on Catherine's head, ensuring that every diamond caught the light in just the right way. The Alexander McQueen wedding dress, with its intricate lace sleeves and 9-foot train, complemented the tiara's elegance perfectly. Sarah Burton, the dress's designer, had worked closely with the royal jewelers to ensure that the neckline would showcase the tiara without overwhelming Catherine's natural beauty. As Catherine gazed at herself in the mirror, she thought about the women who had worn this piece before her. The Queen Mother had been photographed countless times wearing the Cartier halo, attending state dinners, royal galas, and family celebrations. The tiara had witnessed decades of British history, from the uncertainty of World War II to the celebration of victory, from the coronation of Elizabeth II to the Silver Jubilee. Now, it would become part of Catherine's own story. Her mother, Carol Middleton, watched from a nearby chair, her own emotions carefully controlled but visible in the slight tremor in her voice when she spoke. "You look absolutely radiant, darling," she whispered, taking care not to disturb the final preparations. The Middleton family had come so far from their roots in Leeds, building a successful party supply business and providing their children with the best education possible. But nothing could have prepared them for this moment. The significance of the tiara choice had not been lost on royal watchers. Queen Elizabeth II had personally selected the Cartier halo from her extensive collection, passing over more elaborate pieces like the diamond diadem or the George IV state diadem. The choice was seen as both practical and symbolic. Practical because the tiara's relatively modest size would complement Catherine's understated elegance, and symbolic because it represented a bridge between tradition and modernity. Catherine's sister Pippa entered the room, her own excitement barely contained as she saw her sister fully dressed for the first time. The maid of honor dress, also designed by Sarah Burton, had been carefully chosen to complement rather than compete with the bride's ensemble. Pippa's role in the ceremony would be crucial, managing the extensive train as Catherine walked through Westminster Abbey, but her emotional support had been even more important during the months of preparation. The hairstylist made final adjustments to Catherine's hair, which had been styled in a partial updo to showcase both the tiara and the dress's dramatic neckline. James Price, who had been working with Catherine for months, understood the importance of creating a hairstyle that would photograph beautifully from every angle while remaining secure enough to support the tiara throughout the long ceremony and reception. Outside Clarence's house, thousands of well-wishers had gathered despite the early hour, their excitement palpable even through the thick walls of the royal residence. The sound of their cheers drifted up to the preparation room, adding to the surreal quality of the morning. Catherine had grown accustomed to public attention during her 8-year courtship with William, but nothing had prepared her for the global fascination with their wedding. The Queen's dresser, Angela Kelly, arrived to make a final inspection of the tiara's positioning. Kelly, who had been dressing the Queen for over 2 decades, brought with her an encyclopedic knowledge of royal jewelry protocol. She adjusted the tiara by mere millimeters, ensuring that it sat at the perfect angle to catch the Abbey's lighting during the ceremony. Her experienced eye also checked that the tiara's weight was properly distributed, preventing any discomfort during the 3-hour ceremony. As the final preparations were completed, Catherine found herself thinking about Prince William, who would be waiting for her at the altar in his red tunic of the Irish Guards. They had met as students at the University of St. Andrews, and their relationship had blossomed slowly over the years, weathering the intense media scrutiny that came with dating a future king. The tiara represented not just her entry into the royal family, but the culmination of a love story that had captured the imagination of people around the world. The Queen Mother's jewelry box had been opened especially for this occasion, and Catherine had spent hours studying the various pieces available to her. The Cartier halo had immediately caught her attention, not just for its beauty, but for its personal connection to the royal family. The Queen Mother had worn it on numerous occasions, including several appearances with a young Princess Elizabeth, creating a direct link between past and future queens. Lady Susan Hussey, one of the Queen's ladies-in-waiting, shared stories about the Queen Mother's fondness for the tiara during the final fitting sessions. The Queen Mother had often said that jewelry should enhance rather than overwhelm the wearer, a philosophy that resonated with Catherine's own approach to fashion. The Cartier halo embodied this principle perfectly, its elegant design adding glamour without appearing ostentatious. The photographer arrived to capture the final moments before Catherine's departure for Westminster Abbey. Mario Testino, who had been chosen for his ability to capture both the grandeur and intimacy of royal occasions, worked quickly to document every detail. The photographs would become part of royal history, preserved in the archives for future generations to study and admire. The tiara's diamonds seemed to come alive under the camera's lights, each facet reflecting the significance of the moment. Catherine's transformation was complete. The shy university student who had caught Prince William's eye in a charity fashion show had become a radiant bride, ready to take her place in the most famous family in the world. The Cartier halo tiara, with its decades of royal history, would now become forever associated with her own journey from commoner to princess. The sound of carriage wheels on cobblestones announced that it was time to leave for Westminster Abbey. Catherine took one last look in the mirror, her reflection showing a confident woman ready to embrace her destiny. The tiara caught the light one final time in the preparation room, its diamonds seeming to wink with approval. In a few hours, she would be the Princess of Wales, and the Cartier halo would have played its part in one of the most watched weddings in history. As she prepared to leave Clarence House, Catherine carried with her not just the weight of the tiara, but the hopes and dreams of a nation that had fallen in love with her fairy tale romance. The journey to Westminster Abbey would take only minutes, but it represented a transformation that had taken years to complete. The Princess of Wales' relationship with royal tiaras had begun, and it would continue to evolve throughout her life as a working member of the royal family. The Cartier halo tiara had found its newest guardian, and Catherine was ready to honor the legacy of the remarkable women who had worn it before her. The first chapter of her tiara story was about to be written in the ancient stones of Westminster Abbey, witnessed by millions around the world who had gathered to celebrate love, tradition, and the enduring power of the British monarchy. The grand ballroom of Buckingham Palace buzzed with anticipation as Catherine prepared for her first state banquet as the Princess of Wales. 3 years had passed since her wedding day, and she had grown more comfortable with the protocols and traditions of royal life. Tonight, however, would mark a significant milestone in her relationship with the royal jewelry collection. For the first time, she would wear the Cambridge Lover's Knot tiara, a piece that had become synonymous with her late mother-in-law, Princess Diana. Angela Kelly approached with the tiara case, her expression reflecting the gravity of the moment. The Cambridge Lover's Knot tiara was not just another piece of royal jewelry. It was a connection to one of the most beloved figures in modern royal history. Princess Diana had worn this tiara countless times during her marriage to Prince Charles, and it had become her signature piece. The decision to offer it to Catherine had been made by the Queen herself, recognizing the young princess's growing confidence and her important role in the future of the monarchy. Created by Garrard and Company in 1914, the tiara was commissioned by Queen Mary as a copy of a tiara owned by her grandmother, Princess Augusta of Hesse-Kassel. The original design featured 19 diamond arches, each topped with a lover's knot and suspended with a teardrop pearl. The craftsmanship was extraordinary, requiring hundreds of hours of work by the most skilled jewelers in London. The result was a piece that was both romantically beautiful and regally impressive, perfectly suited for the most formal royal occasions. William stood beside Catherine as she prepared for the evening, his presence providing comfort during what he knew was an emotional moment for both of them. He remembered his mother wearing this very tiara to state banquets, royal galas, and diplomatic receptions. Diana had made the piece famous around the world, but she had also spoken privately about its weight and the headaches it sometimes caused during long formal events. The tiara weighed significantly more than the Cartier halo that Catherine had worn on her wedding day. The Chinese state visit was particularly significant for the royal family, marking an important moment in British-Chinese diplomatic relations. President Xi Jinping and his wife, Peng Liyuan, would be the guests of honor, and the evening would include representatives from both governments, business leaders, and cultural figures. Catherine's choice of tiara would be photographed extensively and analyzed by fashion experts and royal watchers around the world. As the dresser carefully positioned the Cambridge Lover's knot on Catherine's head, the weight was immediately noticeable. The tiara required a specific hairstyle to distribute the weight properly, and Catherine's hair had been arranged in an elegant updo that would provide adequate support. The diamonds caught the ballroom's chandelier light magnificently, but Catherine could understand why Diana had sometimes found the piece challenging to wear for extended periods. The red evening gown, designed by Jenny Packham, had been chosen specifically to complement the tiara's grandeur. The color was both diplomatically appropriate for the Chinese delegation and visually stunning against the diamonds and pearls of the tiara. Every detail had been carefully considered, from a neckline that would showcase the tiara to the sleeve length that would allow for proper protocol during the formal dinner service. Lady Susan Hussey provided final guidance on tiara etiquette as Catherine prepared to join the receiving line. The positioning of the head during photographs, the proper way to acknowledge guests without disturbing the tiara's balance, and the subtle signals used to indicate when adjustments might be needed. All of these details have been practiced during private sessions. The Cambridge Lover's knot required different considerations than the lighter Cartier halo, and Catherine had spent hours learning to move gracefully while wearing it. The emotional weight of wearing Diana's tiara was not lost on anyone in the room. Diana's former dresser, who had remained close to the royal family, had shared stories about the princess's relationship with this particular piece. Diana had loved the romantic design, but had often joked about its substantial weight, sometimes calling it her headache tiara. Despite this, she had chosen to wear it for many of her most important public appearances, understanding its significance and visual impact. Catherine's relationship with royal protocol had evolved significantly since her wedding day. She now understood the subtle language of royal jewelry, how different pieces conveyed different messages, and the importance of choosing the right tiara for each occasion. The Cambridge Lover's knot was reserved for the most formal state occasions, and tonight's Chinese state banquet certainly qualified. Her choice to wear it signaled her growing confidence and her acceptance of her role as a senior member of the royal family. The Queen's arrival in the preparation anteroom marked the final stage of the evening's preparations. Elizabeth II, wearing the George IV state diadem, surveyed Catherine's appearance with approval. The two tiaras represented different eras of royal history, but together they embodied the continuity and tradition that defined the British monarchy. The Queen's subtle nod indicated her satisfaction with Catherine's transformation from nervous newlywed to confident princess. Photography sessions before state banquets had become more elaborate over the years, with official portraits being distributed to media outlets around the world. Catherine's comfort level with formal photography had increased dramatically since her wedding day, and she now understood how to position herself to showcase the tiara's beauty while maintaining proper royal bearing. The Cambridge lovers not photographed magnificently, its 19 arches creating a stunning crown effect that would translate beautifully in both color and black and white images. The walk from the preparation room to the grand staircase gave Catherine time to adjust to the tiara's weight and balance. She had practiced this route several times during rehearsals, learning to navigate the palace's corridors while maintaining perfect posture. The tiara's substantial presence required careful attention to head movement, and Catherine had developed a natural grace that made wearing even the heaviest pieces appear effortless. Prince Philip, now in his 90s but still attending major state occasions, offered words of encouragement as Catherine prepared to descend the grand staircase. His decades of experience with royal protocol and his observations of countless state banquets provided valuable perspective. He had watched Diana wear this same tiara during her years as Princess of Wales, and he could see how Catherine was making the piece her own while honoring its history. The Chinese delegation's arrival at Buckingham Palace had been carefully choreographed, with every detail designed to honor their guests while showcasing the grandeur of the British monarchy. Catherine's appearance in the Cambridge lovers' not tiara would be one of the evening's highlights, representing the perfect blend of tradition, diplomacy, and personal style that defined modern royal engagements. As the receiving line formed, Catherine took her position next to William, the weight of the tiara now feeling more natural as she adapted to its presence. The evening would last several hours, including the formal dinner, speeches, and a reception for additional guests. Her stamina and grace while wearing the substantial tiara would be tested, but she felt prepared for the challenge. The first guests began to arrive, and Catherine's training in diplomatic protocol came to the forefront. Each introduction required a subtle bow of the head that had to be calculated to avoid disturbing the tiara's position. The pearls suspended from each arch moved gently with her movements, creating a subtle musical quality that added to the piece's romantic charm. President Xi Jinping and Peng Liyuan were presented to the royal family with full ceremonial honors. Catherine's curtsy to the visiting dignitaries was perfectly executed, demonstrating both respect for the guests and mastery of the complex physical requirements of wearing a major tiara. The Chinese delegation was visibly impressed by the grandeur of the occasion and the beauty of the royal jewelry on display. The progression into the state dining room marked the beginning of the formal portion of the evening. Catherine's confidence while wearing the Cambridge lovers' knot had grown throughout the pre-dinner reception, and she now moved with the natural authority that came with experience. The tiara had become an extension of herself, and she understood why Diana had chosen to wear it for so many important occasions despite its substantial weight. The state banquet itself would be a test of endurance, with multiple courses, formal speeches, and careful attention to diplomatic protocol throughout the evening. Catherine's choice to wear the Cambridge lovers' knot tiara had been validated by its stunning appearance and her obvious comfort with its requirements. She had successfully claimed her place in a lineage of remarkable women who had worn this extraordinary piece, adding her own chapter to its illustrious history while honoring the memory of the princess who had made it famous around the world. The drawing room at Windsor Castle felt unusually quiet as Catherine sat across from Queen Elizabeth II, both women surrounded by an extraordinary display of royal tiaras that had been carefully arranged on velvet-lined tables. This private audience, granted just months before the Queen's passing, would prove to be one of the most meaningful moments in Catherine's journey as a member of the royal family. The purpose of their meeting was both practical and deeply personal, to discuss the future guardianship of the royal jewelry collection and Catherine's evolving role as a keeper of royal traditions. 7 years into her marriage, Catherine had worn several tiaras from the royal collection, but today she would see pieces that had rarely been displayed together. The Queen, now in her 90s, had decided it was time to share the stories behind each tiara, ensuring that their histories would be preserved for future generations. This private tutorial would be Catherine's inheritance in a way that transcended monetary value. She was receiving the oral history that made each piece truly precious. The fringe tiara, worn by Princess Elizabeth on her wedding day in 1947, held the place of honor on the central table. Made from a diamond necklace given to Queen Mary in 1919, it had been transformed by Gerard into one of the most recognizable pieces in the royal collection. The Queen's eyes softened as she recounted the dramatic moment when the tiara broke on her wedding morning, requiring emergency repairs by court jewelers who worked frantically to ensure it would be ready for the ceremony. Catherine listened intently as the Queen described the weight of tradition that came with each piece. The diamond diadem, created for George IV coronation in 1821, represented the very essence of royal authority. Its design incorporated roses, thistles, and shamrocks, representing England, Scotland, and Ireland, while its central cross-patee was surmounted by a brilliant-cut diamond of extraordinary clarity. The Queen had worn this piece for countless official portraits, including those that appeared on postage stamps and currency around the Commonwealth. The conversation turned to the more personal aspects of royal jewelry wearing. The Queen shared stories about the physical challenges of state occasions, from the weight of heavy tiaras during long ceremonies to the practical considerations of different hairstyles required for proper fit. She spoke candidly about the loneliness that sometimes accompanied great formal occasions, when the grandeur of the jewelry could feel overwhelming rather than empowering. The Oriental circlet, originally created for Queen Victoria in 1853, caught Catherine's attention with its distinctive design of lotus flowers and Indian-inspired motifs. This piece represented the complex history of the British Empire and the cultural exchanges that had shaped the monarchy over centuries. The Queen explained how different pieces had been chosen for specific state visits, with careful consideration given to diplomatic sensitivities and historical contexts. As afternoon tea was served on the finest china, the Queen revealed something unexpected: her own struggles with tiara confidence during her early years as Queen. The young Elizabeth had sometimes felt dwarfed by the massive pieces in the collection, particularly during her first state banquets, when she was still learning to project authority while wearing symbols of power that had been crafted for much taller family members. This confession created a moment of profound connection between the two women, separated by decades, but united in their shared experience of growing into royal roles. Catherine found herself particularly drawn to the Burmese ruby tiara, created in 1973 using rubies given as a wedding present to the Queen. This piece represented something different from the historical tiaras. It was a creation of the Queen's own era, designed to reflect her personal taste while maintaining traditional craftsmanship standards. The rubies were said to protect against illness and evil, according to Burmese tradition, and the Queen had worn it during some of her most challenging periods as monarch. The Queen Mother's favorite pieces occupied a special section of the display, including several Art Deco tiaras that reflected the glamorous style of the 1920s and 1930s. The Queen shared intimate stories about her mother's approach to jewelry, how she had used tiaras to boost her confidence during difficult times, particularly during the uncertainty of World War II, when royal ceremonies had continued despite the bombing of London. Photography was strictly forbidden during this private session, making it even more precious. Catherine realized she was receiving knowledge that could never be captured in official documentation or museum displays. The Queen's memories, her personal experiences with each piece, and her insights into their historical significance were being passed down in the ancient tradition of oral history. This was inheritance beyond price, the living connection between past and future queens. The conversation inevitably turned to Princess Diana and her relationship with the royal jewelry collection. The Queen spoke thoughtfully about Diana's natural ability to wear tiaras, her instinctive understanding of their dramatic potential, and her skill at choosing the right piece for maximum impact. There was sadness in her voice as she recalled Diana's return of the jewelry after the divorce, particularly the Cambridge lover's knot tiara that had become so associated with her public image. Catherine's role as a mother brought a new dimension to their discussion. The Queen spoke about the responsibility of teaching future generations to appreciate and care for these treasures, not just as beautiful objects, but as symbols of continuity and tradition. She shared stories about teaching her own children about jewelry etiquette, the proper handling of precious pieces, and the importance of understanding each tiara's place in royal history. The Grand Duchess Vladimir tiara, with its interchangeable emerald and pearl drops, demonstrated the practical adaptability that had kept royal jewelry relevant across changing fashions and diplomatic requirements. The Queen explained how this versatility had made it one of her most frequently worn pieces, suitable for everything from Commonwealth receptions to private family celebrations. The ability to change the stones had allowed one tiara to serve multiple ceremonial purposes while maintaining visual interest across decades of public appearances. As the afternoon progressed, Catherine began to understand that she was receiving much more than a jewelry tutorial. The Queen was entrusting her with the emotional and cultural weight of these pieces, preparing her to be their guardian not just during her own lifetime, but for the generations that would follow. Each tiara represented not just skilled craftsmanship, but the dreams, struggles, and triumphs of the women who had worn them. The Queen's health had been declining, and both women were aware that opportunities for such intimate conversations would become increasingly rare. The urgency underlying their discussion was unspoken, but palpable. Catherine was being prepared for a future where she would be the primary keeper of these stories, the one responsible for passing down both the physical artifacts and their intangible heritage to Charlotte and any future daughters-in-law. The session concluded with the Queen placing a small velvet box in Catherine's hands. Inside was a delicate diamond brooch that had belonged to Queen Victoria, a piece too small to be included in the major tiara displays, but significant for its personal connection to the monarchy's longest-reigning previous queen. It was a gift that transcended protocol, a personal token of the Queen's confidence in Catherine's ability to carry forward the traditions they had discussed. As Catherine prepared to leave Windsor Castle that day, she carried with her not just the memory of an extraordinary private audience, but the weight of responsibility for preserving one of the world's most significant jewelry collections. The tiaras would continue to play their ceremonial roles in state occasions and royal celebrations, but now Catherine understood their deeper significance as tangible links between past, present, and future. The quiet afternoon at Windsor had transformed Catherine's relationship with royal jewelry from appreciation to stewardship. She had been entrusted with stories that no book could contain and memories that no museum could preserve. The Princess of Wales had received an inheritance more valuable than diamonds, the living history of the crown and the confidence of a dying queen in her ability to honor and protect it for generations yet to come. The morning sun streamed through the windows of the Royal Collection vault at Windsor Castle as Catherine stood before an ornate mirror, preparing for what would become known as the most significant tiara moment of her life. Today marked the coronation of King Charles III, and for the first time, Catherine would wear the George IV state diadem as the newly titled Princess of Wales. The weight of history seemed to settle around her shoulders as she prepared to claim her place in a lineage of extraordinary women who had shaped the British monarchy. More than a decade had passed since her wedding day, and Catherine's journey with royal tiaras had evolved from nervous anticipation to confident mastery. She had worn the Cartier halo for her wedding, mastered the substantial Cambridge lovers not for state occasions, and learned the intimate histories of the collection during her private sessions with the late Queen Elizabeth II. Now, as Charles prepared to be crowned king, Catherine would take her place as his heir's wife, wearing one of the most significant pieces in the royal collection. The George IV state diadem had been created in 1820 for King George IV coronation, representing the very essence of royal authority and British identity. Its design featured 4 crosses petit alternating with 4 floral bouquets, each composed of roses, thistles, and shamrocks representing the 3 kingdoms of England, Scotland, and Ireland. The centerpiece, a 4-carat yellow diamond, known as the coronation diamond, had witnessed nearly every major royal ceremony for over 2 centuries. Princess Charlotte, now 8 years old, watched with wide eyes as her mother prepared for the ceremony. Catherine had been carefully introducing her daughter to the traditions and responsibilities that might one day be hers. But today's lesson was perhaps the most important. Charlotte would see her mother transform from the approachable parent she knew at home into the formal Princess of Wales who would help lead the nation through one of its most sacred ceremonies. The coronation gown, designed by Sarah Burton of Alexander McQueen, had been created to complement the state diadem perfectly. Every detail had been considered, from the neckline that would frame the tiara to the color that would photograph beautifully in Westminster Abbey's ancient lighting. The ivory silk crepe dress featured intricate embroidery inspired by nature, including rose, thistle, daffodil, and shamrock motifs that echoed the symbolism of the diadem itself. William entered the preparation room wearing the ceremonial robes of the Prince of Wales, the crimson velvet and ermine cape that had been worn by princes for centuries. The sight of him in full regalia reminded Catherine of how far they had traveled together since their university days at St. Andrews. Today, they would be crowned as the Prince and Princess of Wales, inheriting titles that carried the hopes and expectations of millions of people across the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth. The chief dresser from the royal collection approached with white gloves, preparing to handle the state diadem with the reverence it deserved. This tiara had been worn by Queen Elizabeth II for her coronation portrait, countless state openings of Parliament, and numerous official photographs that had defined her 70-year reign. The weight of wearing it would be both physical and emotional, as Catherine stepped into a role that had been vacant since Princess Diana's death more than 25 years earlier. As the diadem was carefully positioned on Catherine's head, the weight was immediately apparent. This was not the delicate Cartier halo or even the substantial Cambridge lover's knot. This was a piece designed to convey absolute authority and majesty. The silver frame, set with over 1,300 diamonds, including the magnificent coronation diamond, required perfect posture and confident bearing. Catherine's years of experience with royal jewelry served her well as she adjusted to its presence. The Archbishop of Canterbury's representative arrived to discuss the precise moments during the ceremony when Catherine would need to bow her head, ensuring that the diadem's positioning would remain secure throughout the 3-hour service. These details, practiced countless times in private rehearsals, would be crucial during the live ceremony watched by millions around the world. Every movement had been choreographed to accommodate the weight and significance of the state diadem. The emotional weight of the morning was heightened by the absence of Queen Elizabeth II, whose death the previous year had triggered this moment of transition. Catherine found herself thinking about the private afternoon they had spent together at Windsor Castle, when the late Queen had shared the intimate stories behind each piece in the royal collection. Today, Catherine would honor that trust by wearing the state diadem with the dignity and grace that the Queen had embodied throughout her remarkable reign. Photography for the official coronation portraits would take place after the ceremony, but preliminary shots were needed for historical documentation. The royal photographer captured Catherine's final preparations, creating images that would be preserved in the royal archives alongside similar photographs of queens and princesses spanning 2 centuries. The state diadem had been photographed countless times, but today it would begin a new chapter in its illustrious history. The sounds of London awakening to coronation day drifted through the windows, crowds gathering along the processional route, military bands preparing for the ceremony, and the distant chiming of church bells across the capital. Catherine's transformation from commoner to princess had been remarkable, but today's ceremony would elevate her to a level of constitutional significance that few women in British history had achieved. Lady Susan Hussey, now serving as Catherine's lady-in-waiting, provided final guidance on the day's protocol. Her decades of experience with royal ceremonies and her intimate knowledge of the royal collection made her invaluable during such momentous occasions. She had served both Queen Elizabeth II and Princess Diana, providing continuity between past and present while helping Catherine navigate the complexities of her new role. The drive to Westminster Abbey would be the final test of Catherine's confidence with the state diadem. The carriage ride through the streets of London, past hundreds of thousands of cheering spectators, would require her to acknowledge the crowds while maintaining perfect posture and protecting the precious cargo on her head. The weeks of preparation had included practice sessions in similar carriages, learning to balance ceremonial waving with the practical requirements of wearing one of the world's most significant tiaras. Prince George and Princess Charlotte would ride in the procession, their first major royal ceremony, as children old enough to understand its significance. Catherine's role as a mother added another dimension to the day's emotions. She was not just claiming her place in royal history, but demonstrating to her children the responsibilities and privileges that came with their birth. The state diadem represented the continuity of monarchy that they would one day help to maintain. The ceremony at Westminster Abbey would mark the culmination of Catherine's journey from university student to Princess of Wales. The ancient building had witnessed coronations for nearly 1,000 years, and today it would see Charles III crowned as king, while Catherine took her place as the most senior royal woman after Queen Camilla. The state diadem would catch the light filtering through the abbey's stained glass windows, creating a moment of visual drama that would define the ceremony's most memorable images. As the final preparations were completed, Catherine took a moment to reflect on the extraordinary journey that had brought her to this moment. From a nervous young woman who had worn the Cartier halo on her wedding day to the confident princess preparing to support her father-in-law's coronation, her relationship with royal jewelry had evolved into something far deeper than fashion or ceremony. She had become a guardian of tradition, a keeper of stories, and a bridge between the monarchy's past and its future. The state diadem represented more than just royal authority. It embodied the trust that the British people had placed in their monarch and his family. Catherine's decision to wear it today was both an honor and a responsibility, acknowledging her role in helping to lead the nation through times of change while maintaining the stability and continuity that defined constitutional monarchy. The carriage arrived at Windsor Castle, its golden exterior gleaming in the morning sun. Catherine's transformation was complete. She had evolved from the commoner who had captured a prince's heart to the Princess of Wales who would help guide the monarchy into a new era. The George IV state diadem had found its newest guardian, and Catherine was ready to honor both its history and its future. As she stepped into the carriage that would carry her to Westminster Abbey, the diamonds in the state diadem caught the light one final time at Windsor, soon to sparkle in the ancient stones of the abbey where kings and queens had been crowned for generations. The Princess of Wales had claimed her place in the timeless story of royal jewels, and the state diadem would now carry her legacy forward, joining the remarkable women who had worn it before her in the endless pageant of British royal history.